Thank you all for tuning in. Now, I can't promise you the outcome that you're gonna get from watching this, but what I can tell you, if you apply what you're about to learn, this will change your financial future. If you're here, it's probably because you're ready for change. And what you're gonna learn in tonight's training will do just that. So if taking back control of your money isn't enough to keep you glued to this screen for the next 90 minutes, I think it's time to reassess your priorities. Number one, you're gonna learn how to take back control of your money. And you're gonna do that by learning how to be the bank. Number two, you're gonna learn how to build wealth through your own debts and expenses. And you can do that without working harder, without working longer, and without taking on any additional risk. And number three, you're gonna learn how to get all the money back for every single car you will ever buy, drive, and own. That's exactly what you're gonna learn in tonight's training, so get ready, get set, let's go.
Take back control.
Tuesday night.
Tuesday?
What if by changing just one thing, everything would be better financially for your family? How many of you would make that one change? How many of you want more money? That one paradigm shift and new skill set is the gap between you and the wealthiest families. It's the difference between being a borrower, a consumer, or being a builder. And so welcome, congratulations for being here today. High five your neighbor, high five yourself. How many people could have been here today and they just chose not to show up? You did. You showed up for yourself and maybe more importantly, for those that you love. You're a leader and that's awesome. In the next 6 hours, I'm gonna let you in on a little known secret, a little known fact. The wealthiest families and visionaries like the Rockefellers and Walt Disney have been using this strategy called the infinite banking concept for ages to build and preserve their empires. And there's a reason this was never taught in school, and it's not an accident, but we're gonna come back to that. The strategy is simple, it's legal, and it's something that each and every one of you have access to. And it all starts with changing one thing. And it's a behavior that wealthy families never violate. And most people don't even realize they're breaking this law every month. We're gonna come back to that because once you see it, like the Matrix, you can't unsee it. Shockingly, America, we are last in line for our money. And by the end, you're going to see how we're giving away a big chunk of all the money that we earn every time we get paid to the bank, to the government, and to Wall Street. And I'm going to show you how to take back control from them. So would it be okay if I shared a little about myself and why I'm so passionate about this subject? Imagine this. You're given a job where you're going to work like an extra 30 hours and you get the privilege of taking on a ton of additional roles, stress, and responsibilities. And bonus, here it is, you make zero extra money in the company. How many of you would do that? Nobody. You'd have to be an idiot to do that. And then it gets worse. I leave that role when I realize what's happening and I start my own company. And within a year, I find myself in another role, helping another leader build his coaching platform in the first year of the pandemic from $0 to $4 million. Now I'm working 15 to 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I'm making a third of what I was making in corporate America. And how many in their right mind will do that? Nobody. And you'd have to be crazy to do that. That's what I did. I did it twice. But then I hit rock bottom. I'm standing in the back of a room. This is a virtual room, but much like this. And we're doing this exercise and we're going through this future self exercise. And the leader's asking people, how much money do you want to have by the end of this year? How much are you earning? Who's around you? Who's no longer around you? What are your dreams? What are your visions? What do you want? How awesome is your life going to be? Everyone's amped up. Like you can imagine this, everyone jumping up and screaming. They're getting so psyched. And I started crying. I broke down and I just had tears running down my face. And I looked over at a couple of my peers, my friends that were in the room leading with me, and they didn't understand what was happening. But in that moment, everything hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt like I was failing everyone I love, my wife, my two boys, my family, myself. everyone. And when I got back home to here, I realized that a lot of rules around money where money wasn't serving me. And I went to a friend and I asked for help. I got humble and I said, hey man, hey Reb, I need help. I need a financial philosophy. And he handed me a book and I read that book on a Tuesday. And don't be impressed. Not a long book. It's only 91 pages. But something weird happened. I got angry. Like I want to punch something angry. And I reread the next day. And I literally thought the thing that everyone says to me on the 4,000 calls I've had, if this was true, every American would do this. And that became my mission. By the end of our time together today, you're going to know the secret to wealthy know and how to do it. You're going to see how the banks take your money and make tons of money from the money you work so hard to earn. You'll know how you can give yourself a raise, recapture all the interest, turning your debts into assets, along with truly creating generational guaranteed legacy. And you'll have the resourcefulness, the thinking to pass it on. And a few years ago, this is something I didn't think was available. But my family, we've applied this. We've succeeded with this. Now with 5 policies, I've led thousands of people to do exactly what I'm going to show you today. And you might think this is unattainable right now. I said this before, but I promise you it's within your grasp. Everything begins with the way we think and changing one thing. Let's jump into this. So Nelson Nash would always say that infinite banking was a combination of 4 things: imagination, reason, logic, and prophecy. And as long as you're not driving, Dex, I know you're driving, bro. As long as you're not driving, I want you to take a moment and close your eyes. Let me lead you through this exercise. Imagine this. You're going to go way back, and maybe for some of you, way back to when you were graduating high school. Everything is possible. You haven't graduated yet. You're standing there with all of your classmates, and you've got the leader up front, the head of the school. They're having someone speak with you. And that person is asking you, who here out of all of you new grads is going to be successful and be rich by the time you retire? Before the words even get out of that person's mouth, my mouth asking you that, you're going to be like, ooh, me, call on me, Jason. I'm going to be the next Elon. I'm going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. I'm going to be the next Trump, right? I'm going to be filthy rich. Everything is possible in that moment. And we know what we're capable of. But something happens. It's slow, it's insidious, and it's almost imperceptible. It's the reason you're here today. Something happens over time where we go from having everything be possible to everything feeling heavy, everything feeling hard and stressful around money. And then this becomes a reality. This is shocking. When I saw this, I literally thought this couldn't be true. The Social Security Administration says that only 5 out of 100 people will be financially secure at retirement age. How is that possible? We live in the greatest country and the greatest time in the world. We are the most technologically advanced. We are in the safest. We have more assets and more access than ever. How is this true? That's a travesty. We cannot have this for our country. And by financially secure, that just means that they don't have to go back to work. Now, I don't know about you guys, but how many of you want to get to the end of your work career, your entrepreneurial career, and have to go back and do more just to live? Nobody. So we can do better. And today, we're going to show you how we can do better together. And like this amazing quote, and if you have a camera, if you're not driving, grab this, grab the screen capture. This is something that you should look at every day. You know, Will Rogers said the problem in America isn't so much what people don't know. It's just what people think they know that just ain't so. Not what people don't know. It's what they think they know that just ain't so. So there's a bunch of people that will be familiar to you, right? And I'm going to show you what that book was that I talked about earlier that know about this, and they've known about this, and they've talked about it. And maybe you just hadn't seen the clear writing on the wall. So let's talk about some of those people. Who knows about this? One of them has a rich dad and a poor dad. You know, it was the first financial book I had ever read about a decade ago, and it made sense. But in Second Chance, Robert Kiyosaki talks about the power of whole life insurance. and the cash value in it and how you can use it for what we're talking about. And the big guy, right? The guy who changed my life, who I left corporate America because I went to his event, Tony Robbins talks about it in Money Master the Game in section 5.2. And then you got the book that changed my life. Pay homage to it every single day. I actually believe it should be next to every Bible in America. That's not hyperbole. I actually believe that that is factually where this book should be and held in that kind of esteem, because this book shows you the rules of the game and it shows you our human nature and the 5 things that keep 95% of Americans, not you guys, but everyone else that's out there not learning this, unsuccessful. And then we have my esteemed partners and peers. You know, you got Brent Kessler and Chris Naugle, who co-authored Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. Powerful book, tells their personal journeys and how they used the infinite banking concept to go from broke to impacting tens of thousands of people's lives. And then Chris, because he understands the power of banking, he also has the private money guide that brings back doing business once you're acting like the bank to the you and me level as well. I don't know how many of you seen this concept, but we're going to talk about this really intriguing concept. We're going to talk about how this concept, and you can go to YouTube and watch this, it's called the backwards bicycle, but how this pertains to money. You might think, Jason, you haven't showed us any strategies yet. No, not yet. But what I'm showing you, right, in this video, you watch this welder play this joke on a engineer. Do you remember how it was when you learned how to ride a bike, right? It's not too difficult. You remember, you put your hands on the, handlebars, on the grips maybe when you're back in the 80s learning, and you take your one foot and you put it on the pedal that's up and you push forward. And what happens? The bike lurches forward. And now you get your other foot on there and you start pedaling and you start pedaling harder and harder and harder. And now you're cruising down the street and you're flying. You know, maybe your hair's flying. If you're back in the 80s, you're an 80s kid. And it's a great freedom, but it's pretty easy, right? You turn to the right, the bike goes right. You turn to the left, the bike goes left. And you fall down and you skid up your hands and you skid up your knees and you cry and you're like, Mom, Dad. And they're like, rub some dirt on it, kid. You're fine. You're good. And you get back on the bike. You don't give up. You keep trying. But what would happen, like in this example of this backwards bicycle, if the bike didn't work like that? If when you turn the handlebars to the left, the bike went to the right, and you turn the handlebars to the right and the bike goes left, you'd freak out. How many of you think you could ride that bike right away? Me and my ego, because I cycle all the time, I would say I can do it. But the reality is you couldn't, because the neurons have been wired a certain way. This is just how our brains work. So these neurons, these synapses that we have, they fire in a certain way. And so it takes us a while to relearn how to ride the bike if it's a backwards bicycle. And what I want to offer you is what if everything you've learned about your money was exactly like riding a backwards bicycle? What you were taught will never serve you. And just hold space for that, because what I'm about to show you, it might shake you a little bit. And that's okay. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I just want to show you that what you have learned is not serving you. I want to help you rethink your thinking by changing just one thing. It really is that simple. No matter what the strategy is, it's changing one thing. So let's look at a few of these mysteries, we call them, the mysteries of money. What is the definition of money? Nothing more than a means of exchange, right? We pay money for home, home for money, money for car, car for money, money for clothes, clothes for money. It is just nothing but a means of exchange. We can remove all the feelings, all the adjectives. It's an exchange of value. And the next one is, what company uses compound interest? And you might be popping your hands and say, ooh, call on me, Jason. It's the banks. Well, let's use Mary, for example. So Mary, if you walked into your bank, your big, national bank, World Bank, you hand the $100 bill, and with that, you write the name on it. Does your teller take that crisp $100 bill that you write your name across and go and hand it or put it into your safety deposit box called Mary? No, as soon as that money hits the bank's vault, if you will, it has to be put in motion. It is a law of wealth. Money in motion makes more money. So the banks understand if they're going to take on the liability of storing your money and offering you some small interest rate and that dumb sucker, they're going to make sure that they put that money in motion and they're going to give you a lollipop that says dumb. I don't know if that's a message, but maybe. The third mystery of money. Are your dollars worth more today or in the future? What do you guys think? More today or in the future? This one used to trip me up a little bit yesterday. Yeah, yesterday was the most valuable your money ever was. Every moment of every day, your money is getting less and less valuable. It's like us. Every moment of every day, we're getting more and more wonderful and amazing, right? But your money, if this one's confusing, just think about what you could buy. Well, now that I have $100, think how many candy bars I could buy 20 years ago with this amount of dollars. I could be the coolest kid in my whole little neighborhood, right? I could have bought candy bars, 3 candy bars, 100 candy bars for every kid I knew growing up. Everybody in my class, and my sister's class, and my other, another class. That's how small my school was. And then today, if I had the $100, I could probably buy a few candy bars, right? Because they're 3 or 4 times more expensive and they're a lot bigger and worse for us, but you get the picture, right? Our money is the most valuable today. And so I want you to take good, solid dollars today and have them growing for the future when you need them. And then next, taxes. Does anybody here not pay enough in taxes? Anybody? So in the future, our Uncle Sam here might not charge more in taxes, but we'll definitely have to tax more things. So I don't have my crystal ball ready, but I believe that taxes are either going up or we're going to be taxed on more stuff. And then finally, we're going to play a game. And I'm just going to let's use Howard, right? I liked your answer before, Howard. So when we talk about a retirement account, I want to have a partnership. I want to propose a partnership where I am going to be this great guy on the screen, your T.O. Sam. That's me. And Howard and I are going to have a partnership. And I want you to all listen to this through the lens of forming the same kind of partnership, because I've had millions of partnerships and I've done a pretty wonderful job as Uncle Sam. Okay. In this partnership, Howard, here's how it's going to work. And I want you to really feel this. In the partnership, Howard, you're going to be the one contributing all the money. Okay. You're going to be the one giving me, your partner. It's a 50-50 partnership, by the way, but you're going to give me all the money. I'm going to be kind of hands off, but you're going to give me all the money and help me grow this little, seed into a great big harvest. And then, so that's the first layer of our partnership. How you feeling about it so far? You feeling pretty good, Howard? You're going to be the one that capitalizes the whole system, gives all the money, but I'm going to be a 50-50 partner with you. And now next, I'm going to control everything, make all the rules, if you will. If you need the money, you might put hundreds of thousands of dollars in there, but now, I'm going to tell you when you can access it and how much, and if there'll be a penalty, all the rules. So Howard, you contribute, I make the rules. Are you feeling pretty good about our partnership? Does it seem like something that each and every one of you want to do? When you take that little bitty harvest, this couple $100, and you turn them into hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, you're not going to have heard from me for years, Howard. Like, I'm the best partner ever. You just do what you do, contribute, grow. You don't hear anything from me. But when you're ready to need that money, when you want to come down the mountain and just live your best life, in those passive income / retirement years, I'm going to sidle back in. I'm going to throw my elbow into your ribs like, shh. Hey, Howard, great job, man. You really crushed it. Now I'm going to need my 34.5% or 40% or 25%. I'm just going to make up a number and you have to give it to me. Because when you take the required distributions, that's when I'm going to come back in and say, hey, I need this much money. And you have no control over that. So, Howard, how confident are you in wanting to partner with me in this moment? If any of that made you think, then amazing. You guys are doing exactly what most people don't stop to do. You're pausing and you're saying, wait a minute, if this is happening, maybe what I've been taught or I think I know about money isn't true. So let's talk about how you can keep control more of your money by just changing that one thing. And like my last name, I want to keep things simple was simple. When we map out this method, we're just really going to talk about 3 parts in the upcoming part of this talk to you guys. We're going to talk about the machine and just how simple this machine is. It's just a matter of understanding it. I've already mentioned what it was. And then we're going to talk about the marathon. And if you saw back in my slide when I was talking about myself, I won't run a marathon unless I've swam 2.4 miles and biked 112 miles or more, depending on the Ironman, before I'll run 26.2 miles. But the reason that I'm talking about it in that manner is because this is about long-range thinking. We're not thinking in days or hours. We're not trying to get rich quick. We're talking about what's possible when you have a rock-solid strategy that's built for the long haul, that gives you control and guarantees. And then finally, your legacy. I don't know about the rest of you. We're here to control our money. We're here to change one thing. But the security, when you love somebody or something, of knowing that you, just by changing one thing, will leave a legacy, guaranteed, it just feels different as a father, as a mother, as a parent. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And so with the machine, let's pop the hood. Let's look into this thing. Let's talk about what is this machine that we rave about and we're so excited about. Now, this is when I'm doing this live. This is when people are getting up and they need to go to the bathroom and stuff. So sit down, lock in, pay attention. This is nothing more than a dividend, whole life insurance policy from a mutually owned dividend paying company. Let me say that differently. This is a specially engineered whole life policy from a mutually owned dividend paying company that supports this concept and has been profitable every year they've been in business. And they're all profitable and they've all been in business way over 100 years, the youngest one being 120 years old. Think about that for a second. Is that not impressive? A business that's profitable every single year. That is who we want to be our partner when we use what I'm teaching you today. What is this not? Please pay attention here. These things have a place, these instruments, right? These instruments, these tools have a place, but not in the infinite banking concept. We are not talking about anything with a UL. No IULs, no VULs, no ULs, and no term. Again, they all have a place, but for banking, if you're a certified infinite banking practitioner like myself, you actually sign paperwork saying you will never, ever give anyone that's trying to do this banking concept an IUL, a VUL, or a UL. Just no. And the reason is because that puts all the risk back on you. If we're helping you solve a problem, I do not need you to take on more risk. Anyone here feel like they don't have enough risk and stress in their life? What we're talking about today, again, is the changing the one thing, is really storing what we do when we follow the first law of wealth. So I want to do a comparison. This is an interactive section. So I want you all to grab your pens and papers or your crayons or your markers or whatever you like and draw yourself a T-square. And the top left, you're going to write the bank. And the top right, you're going to write policy. It's a really powerful exercise. I love going through this with my kids. Under both, you're going to write the word liquidity. What's your definition of liquidity? I'm going to give you mine in a second. I'm going to offer that liquidity just means you have access to the money. My cheeky version, EB, awesome. My cheeky version is not locked up in financial prison. Now, if anyone has their money in a high yield savings account, and through all my thousands of calls, I've watched that go down from the beginning of 25 till the beginning of 26. But if you have a high yield savings, pop your interest rate in the chat. I want you to use your numbers when you create your chart. This is yours. 3.75. That's a great rate today. I'm guessing that's an online one. People, 3.5. People will probably want to know where you're storing your money for a high yield. If you want to share that, go ahead. I'm not giving financial advice, of course. And now under policy, right? Under bank, now if you're not EB or Howard with 3.75, 3.5, you're probably making 0.07% or less on the money that you're storing in a bank. Remember that number. That's important. Under policy, you can write 3.25%. And you can put a G1 by it. What's a G1, Jason? It's guaranteed to never do worse than that. And now under bank, all of that high yield interest that's being earned will be taxable, right? It is taxable growth inside a bank. In your policy, it's tax-free growth. It's tax-free growth, it's tax-free loans, it's tax-free distribution. Both you using the money and the cherry on top that's coming, tax-free. Under the bank, you have unstable. And if I was you, I would ask me, hey, Jason, define unstable for me, right? It's important what our words mean because they're different to each person. I would define unstable, if you go back to the beginning of 2022, where you had three major banks fail. And these three major banks, when they failed to the tune of over $100 billion, right? You had the Signature Bank, you had the bank in the Silicon Valley Bank, right? And then you had one other major bank. And if you go back to 2008, 2009, there was over 300 banks that failed. Why is that? Well, banks practice fractional lending. And we'll talk more about how they're making all this money from you, but they practice this lending where when you deposit, $100, they're only keeping $10 and they lend out 90. And through a series of loans, they do that over and over and over again. And they're only keeping a fraction. That's why it's called fractional reserve banking in the bank, right? That's why if you've ever heard a run on the bank, when people get nervous when they see what banks are doing, or maybe there's a big scandal or the bank's lost a lot of money, the Silicon Valley Bank, right? When people ran to get their money out, that's why that bank had to be bailed out by the government. You guys remember that? And then under policy, you have stable. In an uncertain economic times, in certain world times, like I said earlier, these institutions, these mutually owned whole life companies have been profitable every year well over 100 years. Where we have our 5 policies, they've been profitable for the last 149 years. Well, you might say, how do they do that? Well, it's for a couple reasons. They're so solvent, right, or so profitable because they're only betting on one thing. I won't go deep into this because it's a little uneasy, but they're only betting on when we, their partners, are going to graduate and how long will we pay the premiums. And they also practice a different economy, which is called Austrian economics, which just means that when you deposit $1, you don't actually ever borrow this dollar. You borrow or collateralize that dollar, that cash value, for a tax-free loan. So you get to use the dollar while it's growing. Think about that. You put $1 in, that gives you cash value. You borrow $1. You never interrupt the compounding. And so they have to be highly liquid. Like they have to cover, like when you really dig into it, they have to be able to cover all of the claims that could potentially come with liquid reserves, meaning accessible money. So they're super, super profitable, whether it's a war, whether it's coming off the gold standard, whether it's the pandemic, no matter what, they've been profitable because of how they do things. In the bank, you have your money unprotected. What does that mean? Well, how many entrepreneurs we have here? If say you're in real estate, say you have a business and someone gets hurt in your business or get hurt on the property and you get sued. One of the biggest wealth killers are attorneys, right? And we have more attorneys per capita here in the States than anywhere else in the world. So in the bank, if you have a lot of your money stored in the bank, being an entrepreneur, which is a lot of people do, right? Because they need it for their business and et cetera, well, now you're vulnerable to being sued and having your money go away. In a policy, it's protected. And like in the great country of Florida, it's fully protected. Like no matter how much money, cash value I have in the policy, it's protected against liens and judgment. So far, when we're looking at the left versus the right, on the right side under policy, we have guaranteed growth, right? That's uninterrupted and compounding. We have liquidity. The money is accessible. It is the tax-free growth away from Uncle Sam in a stable environment that is protected from attorneys. Those are the living benefits. That's why we're here together. But now it gets better, right? Like everything, we want to show you more. So under bank, you have no death benefit. Under policy, we have a tax-free death benefit. And that's going to be a multiple of whatever amount you're putting into your policy or premium deposits over the course of the time that you're using this system. And so if you're comparing the left side, the bank, to the right side, the policy, and the bank asked you, everyone, Paul, Ray, Christopher, Frank, EB, Susan, Megan, everybody that's been commenting, if they asked all of you and everyone else tuning in, where, like the bank's asking you this question, where should we store our money that has to be safe, liquid, and protected? Where are the banks storing their money? And life insurance. Yes. Since 2012, life insurance companies have quadrupled, that's 4 times, the amount of whole life insurance that they put on their employees. The big banks and the banks, you can look this up, have over $225 billion of whole life insurance. Not the IULs, not the ULs, of whole life. Why? Why are they doing that? That's the question I want you to walk away with. If they're not storing the money in their systems that they're managing and creating and running, but storing their liquidity or money in a policy from a mutually owned company, why is that? That's the takeaway from this slide. And so let's jump into the next part of this. But how does your money flow? This one is one that helps your thinking. I'm going to use Mike, right? Mike got the policies answer. Mike, you're in the market for a new car. So I want you to imagine this. Everyone else imagine along. What's your new car look like? What kind of car? Is it a truck? Is it a car? What kind of interior do you have? What's the color? What's that new car smell? Just imagine it. And now you have discipline. You are actually following the first law of wealth and paying yourself, right? Got this from the richest man in Babylon. You're paying yourself at least 10% of what you earn, and you're storing it in a bank. In this case, it's going to be my bank. I'm going to be the manager of this bank. Okay. And now while you're storing the money in the bank, I'm doing way better than the current market. I'm paying you, Mike, 4% on the money you're storing in the bank. And every year you're coming in and you're making deposits to the bank and you're saving for this new car. And you've been saving for a couple years now. Now you're ready to make your purchase. And Mike, you walk into my bank and you say, hey, Jason, how you doing today, buddy? It's good to see you, man. How are the kids? How's the family? Whew, man, it's nice to see you. I'll be like, Mike, yeah, man, I've been watching you save this money. You've got a lot more money than most people saved up. Good job. And you say, hey, I need that money, Jason. I need that money. I got my eyes on this beautiful new ride. I'm going to go get that car. I cannot wait. And I say, Mike, hey, man, I've got this idea for you. How about you keep storing your money with me? I'll keep paying you 4%. Don't take your money from the bank. And instead, I will give you a loan for 5 years, 60 months for 6%. Your money will earn 4%, and I will charge you, the bank will charge you 6%. But at the end of 5 years, you will still make money. How many of you believe that I'm telling Mike that I'm an honest banker and I'm telling Mike the truth? So let's look at the actual math, because at the end of the day, we have the math that'll always show you your strategy, what you're trying to do. And that's the clarity that you're looking for here. What would you do if you had this system? So now the payments back are $483.32. The future value is $28,990. So what that's saying is Mike's paying an extra $3,999 of interest to the bank over those 5 years. That makes sense? Let's look at the growth. $30,525. What? Get out of here. That's crazy. That feels a little off, right? So $30,525. I don't know if you do math in your state. I know we got people from all over the country here watching, listening, and watching the replay. Is $30,000 more than $29,000? It is, right? Like, I'm not crazy. 30 grand is like, I'm an artist, but 30,000 is definitely more than 29,000. So you just made $1,526, Mike. Now, in this example, if you bought a Ferrari for $250, you would have made $15,000 in the scenario. It works with any number. And the reason this happened, let me just give you a quick explanation, is because your money is uninterrupted and compounding year over year, and you're paying down a loan on a depreciating scale. So the principal is going down as you're paying the interest, and you're going to make money. This is an example of why you want to ask what the money is actually doing versus looking at the percentage rates. We're going to show you how the banks are using your hard-earned money to make more money. Remember, paying 4%, you were depositing 25,000, Mike. Now you're bringing all the money you're making. You're putting 100 grand into the bank to store it there. I say, thank you very much. Here's your 4% every month as you store it here. But I know it's a liability. So I'm going to start doing what? I'm going to start moving the money out and lending it. So first I lend it to someone that's buying a home. 7% is what I'm going to charge in that deal. And the seller that sold the home is going to have to deposit the money that was just used to purchase the home, and it comes back to the bank. So the money goes out and it comes back. It's a circle. It always comes out and it comes back. Now that you have this beautiful new home, 3-car garage, well, you can't keep driving your beater. It's not gonna, it's old. It's not nice. It's not as pretty. So you need a new car. So you're gonna go buy a new blue BMW. That's one fast looking, nice looking car, right? But now I'm gonna charge you 8% as the bank. And then the money does what? It goes out, you make the purchase, it comes back to the bank. And now I'm gonna move the money again, right? Money comes back for the car. You need a remodel, your spouse, your wife. They're like, hey, love the new house. We promised the kids a pool. Or this kitchen's not big enough to entertain. Or we got to have a mother-in-law suite. And so now you redo and you get a remodel and you get another loan at 9%. Money goes out, it comes back in. Now, with all the new home, you didn't think about the extra furniture set. You didn't think about the HOA. You didn't think about all these other costs. And so now your debt gets a little wacky because you kind of overstretch yourself with the car, the Beamer, the remodel. And so now you do a debt consolidation. And the bank's always got your back, right? You get stuff in the mail every day from those guys. They're there for you, aren't they? No, right? Now you got a debt consolidation. Instead of charging you the average of a credit card right now, 24.5%, they're charging you 12%. You're like, oh, it's a good deal. I'm saving 12%. Money comes out and comes back. So let's look how much my bank just made while you're making 4%. 7 minus 4, I'm going to go kind of fast here. It's 3. 8 minus 4 is 4. 9 minus 4, right? 5. 12 minus 4 is 8. We're going to add that up. EB says 32. I like that. 32 is definitely more than 4, right? But it's actually 20%. Or is it? Does the bank actually make 20% on your money? Or how much larger is 20 than 4%? Isn't that 500% more? That doesn't blow your mind. Go to BauerFinancial.com. Every dollar that you leave in the bank earns the bank on an annual basis 400 to 1,300%. And you can go look up your bank's information. It takes a while to find it, but you can find how much of an annual return the banks are making on your money. That's a lot of money. So when I tell you that banking is the most profitable business in the world, it is, factually. And so now that I showed you that, how many of you would like to know a better way? Because I know how you buy your cars currently, right? And buy the big purchases in your life. We call them major purchases. That's your homes, your cars, big renovations, big trips, things like that. But how many of you buy your cars like this? You're either financing it, so you're paying interest to somebody, or you save your money and you pay cash where you give up the opportunity, or you've leased it, so you're just renting it, right? Am I doing pretty good so far? Or maybe, no, I don't see any of you don't. You guys look pretty honest. No thieves, right? That's the fourth way you get a car. Well, what if I show you a better way, an alternate way where you get to keep a lot more money in your family? Would you want to see that? Older cars, no loans. I like it. So let's look under the hood. So we're depositing $10,000 a year, okay? And when I say deposits, we're going to call them premium deposits because this is you putting money into your banking system. This is your system. And I want you to start thinking about what you're going to call your system, because that's one question I'll ask you when we get to the point of building your specially engineered system. But you're going to make your premium deposits into the system. Your age doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're 21, 31, 41, 51, 61, or 71 years old. So if you're thinking, I'm too old, you're not. As long as you're healthy and you can qualify for this, as long as you are going to be a good partner in that mutual company, age doesn't matter. And I mentioned the legacy portion, the death benefits, not what we're focused on today. We're focused on the living benefits. But to me, as a father of 2 and a husband, it is important. And we kind of undervalue it when we have these conversations. But now, looking under the hood, and I'm going to show you something that's crazy. I don't want you to ever do this. But in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, you're going to deposit $10,000 a year. In year 3, you're going to take a loan for $25,000. You see how the cash value is building up, 5,800, 12,215. Year 3, you have enough to take a loan and buy the car. Now, earlier I showed you how to be an honest banker, right? Mike was going to pay back the bank $483 a month. We're just going to round it up, Mike, to 500, and we're going to pay the bank back, be an honest banker. That's the third law of what I'm teaching you, $6,000 a year for the purchase of the car. So now after 7 years, you've deposited $70,000, you've paid $30,000 back on the loan, you've taken a $25,000 loan, and a difference of $75,000. Look at the cash value, $67,881, even though you took a $25,000 loan. Look, the money kept growing, even though you took a policy loan. So now at the end of 7 years, you have the vehicle and 91 cents of every dollar. We're going to stop putting money into this policy after year 7. I'll never teach you this, but this is just to emphasize the power of using the system to make your major purchases and being an honest banker. So now in years 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, you're not going to put any additional funds into the policy. You're going to take another loan because that $25,000 car, Mike, that you got, your kids, your family, your friends, the people in the parking lot, they didn't treat it very well. You did, but they made a mess of it. No longer has a new car smell. It's not shiny anymore. It's maybe a little sun-worn. And now you're going to get another car, a second car with the same system, and you're going to be an honest banker again. And so now, over the next 5 years, you've deposited $30,000 and paying yourself back. That's in the bucket to replenish what you borrowed. You're going to take a $25,000 loan. But look, your cash value has increased by $23,592. So the cost to you is $5,000, but your cash value is increased by $23,592, and you haven't made any more deposits into your system. What just happened is you've made money on the second car, and you'll make more money on every car after that. They will never ask you anything other than, how would you like your money, Howard? Would you like it deposited ACH, or would you like a snail mail check that'll take 10 days? You tell us. But no hoops, no restrictions. Once your system is set up, you make the rules. Them the rules. It's also the danger of this, but those are the rules. Let's look at the rules. 3 rules that you must follow. Now, we teach endlessly on this. You must follow these rules. Otherwise, you will not be a successful banker. Number 1, pay yourself first as if your life depended on it, because it truly does. Like gravity, the laws of wealth apply. You can't step off a bridge and expect just to float there, right? You're going down. Same thing with the laws of wealth. You have to pay yourself at least 10% or more, depending on what stage of your life you're in, to make this system successful. Second, you got to pay yourself back with interest. That just means being an honest banker. And finally, you're recycling and recapturing your money. That means have a plan when you take a loan and continue to put money into your policy as well, right? This is how you keep your system healthy. So if this works for that truck or a car or whatever it is that you're purchasing, pretty safe to say it could work for a ton of other things, right? And so now here's the last thing I promised to show you today. How many of you are coming here, you make good money, you're a good saver, but you can't seem to get ahead because of the interest you're paying on credit cards, mortgages, cars? Does anyone have know that they're doing well, but they think they could be doing better? This particular example was an actual client. After he saw this presentation 10 years ago, the math and the laws haven't changed, but 10 years ago, he walked up to Chris Naugle, who many of you know, and after Brent's presentation, he said, "Chris, hey man, does this work for me?" And Chris, in his Buffalo style, was like, "I don't know, man. Yeah, it could. Hey, thanks for coming up. Yeah, maybe. Depends." Very straightforward. It depends. Show me what we're working with. Show me what you're currently doing. And so this chiropractor, mid-40s, showed us his debts. $478,000 in bad debt. And bad debt's just defined as we're paying interest to somebody else. and it's not paying us more than we're paying them. Okay? $5,777 per month. It would take this chiropractor, this doc from Minnesota, 26 years to pay off the bank. And the bank will make $316,000 in change from this chiropractor over the next 26 years. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of interest being paid just to have a condo, a BMW, a boat, a Lowe's card, a Wells Fargo card, Discover card. So when we ask them, we say, hey, doc, are you saving any money? I say, yeah, well, I sock away $25,000 into my qualified plan with Uncle Sam. And we said, okay, well, hey, I that's a great thing. I'm glad you're paying yourself. Would you be willing to maybe make a change and deposit that into your own specially engineered policy? And he thought about it and he's like, you know what? If it'll help me not pay $316,000 and keep more money in my family, absolutely, Chris, I will do that. And so let's look at what this looks like. Go through the math. And I used the vault to create this, to recreate this. And so now you can see this is the kind of schedule you'll get when we work with you to do this. He deposits $25,000. Remember, we're only changing one thing. Where's your money that you save being stored? First year, he has $13,000 in cash value. He takes a loan out, a tax-free loan. He pays off the Discover card and the Wells Fargo card and recaptures $432 a month. So he's still paying a ton out to the banks, $5,345 a month, but he's slowly going to start chipping away at the interest and the payments that are leaving his family forever. Okay, I call it paying the other families. In year 2, and thank you for being so engaged because I'm trying to take something that's super boring, whole life, that's specially engineered for you and make it sexy. So year 2, I want you to notice something here. The doc puts $25,000 in. He now has the ability to take a $14,000 loan, which is more than it was in year 1. The payments back equal $5,184. That $19,000, that's not newfound money, right? No, we're concentrating on getting out of interest being paid to the banks. So now he knocks out the Lowe's card and the private loan. You see the amount went down to $380,000 owed, and he recaptures more interest. So now he's getting $1,641 a month. So year 3, same amount going in, 25 grand. And now look, every year, and I talk about how this system is, here's something you should write down. Can you all be patient for 2 years for a lifetime of profit? So now by year 3, the doc puts in 25 grand. He's got over $21,000 that he can access. He knocks out the boat and the Beamer, gone. He recaptures more money. And so let's look at how this has worked so far. How much have we put in years 1, 2, or 3? 1, 2, and 3. 75 grand, right? The loans we took out, the tax-free loans, $13,000, $14,000, $21,000 for $48,000 in change, almost 49 grand. How much is left in the policy? Is it the difference between $75,000 and $48,000 and change? No, right? It's not. All the cash value is still growing uninterrupted and compounding, even if we used it to pay off the debts, the bad debt. So let's see how much longer it's going to take this doc to get out of debt. You guys ready? Year 4, money goes into the policy. The $25,000 goes into the policy. Got $23,000 of cash value, right? Every year it's getting better. Payments back to himself, 44 grand. He knocks out the Nordstrom and he knocks down a little bit going towards the condo, right? So now it's just switching a little bit more. He's got $3,600 a month recaptured by year 4. Remember, it was going to take how many years before? 26, I think it was, right? And now we get to year 5. This is where it starts getting a little bit more exciting. This year, we're going to tackle the condo. $25,000 in, $24,000 in cash value, $54,000 back recaptured for a total of 78 grand. We pay off the condo, and you see on this chart in the middle, condo is completely knocked out. We make a big chunk towards the home. We recapture the condo payment. Our balance overall is down to $105,000, and we've recaptured almost everything. The last one we have is the home. So now in year 6, same deposit. And this year was the year that every dollar the doc was putting into the system would give him more than $1. And he decided, hey, I need to expand my warehouse of wealth. And this is a conversation we'll have because it's a journey. Remember, it's a marathon. But in this year, the doc decides, okay, I'm going to put 10,000 in my existing policy, and I have 13,000 new dollars by the end of that year that I can use. I'm going to start a second policy because now I'm recapturing almost all of the money, and I want to store it in my system. I don't want to keep giving it to the other families. And so now between the two policies and the payments back, $80,981. The house is completely paid off. It's actually halfway through this year, right? So 6.5 years. The debt is knocked out, right? The debt's to zero. He's recaptured $5,777 a month. So now being an honest banker, he's going to start replenishing his banking system at this point, right? These two policies, any of the policy loans he's taken out, he's going to start filling up his system again. And now let's look at how much interest he's recaptured. $212,000 of the $300,000+ has been recaptured. 2/3 of the interest comes back to his family. Does anybody want an extra $200,000 back to their family? Would that be meaningful? And what we do when we're customizing your plan is we're going to show their plan, 312 months, $307,000 paid to them, to the banks, versus the plan of 78 months to be out of debt, another 28 months. I'm going to show you this a little later too, but I'm showing you how their plan works. And now, like I said, we've recaptured $212,000. We have $200,000+ in cash value and almost $1 million in death benefit. That's the difference. You can do no strategies, what the banks want us to do. A custom strategy, which you see the avalanche, highest interest rate first, would win mathematically. Or when you decide that you have to be your own banking system, you're going to have cash value and the cherry on top at the end for the legacy. So when we're mapping out this mystery, one of my favorite questions of all time is, how do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Like my wife always tells me, Jason, you don't start at the ears, start at the feet and work your way up. And you're going to get really creative with how we're eating the elephant. Elephant burgers and steaks and salads and kebabs and soups and all kinds of ways to eat this big animal and make sure it doesn't go to waste. And by the way, no elephants were hurt during the filming of this or any time ever. We're just making a point. And the man or the woman didn't fall to the top of the mountain. They had to walk there step by step by step. And I promised you that, when we follow this, if we continue to pay the homes back as promised, I already showed you the math in that spreadsheet. But remember, being an honest banker means we're paying the $879 and the $1221 back for the entire period of time. When we do that over years, that gives us a total of $493,967 that came back to our family that would have went to them, to the banks. Okay? But it gets better because now we have to add the internal rate of return, right? Inside the policies that are earning us a guaranteed rate and probably earning us a dividend. And now we can add a little bit more money. We've got $750,000 back in our system that would have been in their bank. Is that not powerful? I have just showed you the strategy that the wealthiest families have been using. And my question for all of you is, now that you know this, if you don't execute on this, aren't you stealing from yourself, your kids, your great-grandkids, and your great-great-grandkids, every generation? This is money that you've earned that you could keep by learning and changing just one thing. As Warren Buffett said, if poor people would just do what rich people do, they wouldn't be poor no more. Now, Warren Buffett, I don't think ever said this, but I love the quote. Probably remove it by next week. But if he would just do what rich people would do, if you would just follow the laws of wealth, everything will change. I promise. It's changed for us. I know it works. It can change for you. And our reality is at the end, only one of two things is going to happen. We're either going to live or we're going to graduate. We're going to shuffle off this mortal coil. Which one are you better with? Or are you better with or without this? And so just learn how the banks make 400 to 1,300% on your money on an annual basis. How many of you would want to make that kind of money on your money? And we showed you how you can turn your debts into assets by just changing one thing. We showed you a better way to finance the things that you're going to buy while keeping control and having guarantees of your money. And that's the power of becoming your own banker. And it is a verb. It's an actionable step that you have to do. That's what I coach people on. You got to take action. And you know what the most common things my clients say to me? Remember earlier I talked about it's too good to be true. After they figure out that this actually works and they see other people doing it, they say, Jason, I wish I would have known about this 20 years ago. And here's the crazy thing about that. Do you know who knows about this? Rich people. And I guess they just didn't let us into their circle. Well, ladies, gentlemen, welcome aboard. Welcome to the way to build and create and keep and multiply generational wealth. You now know how the wealthy are building their foundation and how you can do the same. Like I said, only one or two things are going to happen. You're going to live or you're going to die. And you've already answered that you're better with this. So now that you know the wealthy have been doing for hundreds of years and how people have created and multiplied generational wealth and legacy, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people have been exactly where you're at right in this moment. And they've chosen to have their strategy call with me and have that conversation. Not one person was disappointed to see where they're at today and how they can become their own banking systems. Or the other path, the more traveled path, is you don't do anything. You keep waiting for things to change. You keep waiting for someone to save you. But what would happen, or what would you feel like if you waited an entire another year, you're a year older, but you're in exactly the same place you are today? You're stressed about money, unhappy, worried, frustrated, and it's bleeding all over your family. Be blessed. Have a great day. I appreciate all of you. See you next week.